All right, and welcome to the Blue White Breakdown presented by Penn Live. This is Johnny McGonigal, Max Ralph here. Talk a little Penn State ball, Max. As we're into spring camp, we're recording this Thursday, April 3rd, a few weeks out from the Blue White game. Penn State already a couple weeks now into spring camp, and we talked to James Franklin on Tuesday night. We talked to Marques Hagans, the wide receivers coach, which was a very enlightening interview. I stayed there for the entire time to hear everything he had to say. His first time talking to reporters since the CFP semifinal loss to Notre Dame, a game in which the wide receivers had 0 catches, and his room looks a hell of a lot different right now than it did at that point, Max. But a lot of observations coming out of there, and it was great to have me, you, Bob, Joe Herman as well on hand for spring camp, and we've got these availabilities now every Tuesday night. We got a pretty good look at practice, extended periods. Got some one-on-one red zone, wide receivers on corners work as well. And so, yeah, I just want to throw it to you first. What was your primary takeaway from that practice availability that we had before we dive into what James and everyone else said afterwards?
Yeah, we had a heck of a crew there, like you said, Johnny. It was great to have all four of us. We were out in full force, but it was definitely worth it. These spring practice windows so far have been, a little bit longer. We're seeing a little bit more. It's really good to see some of the one-on-one action and everything because feels like even though it's early in the spring, we're starting to be able to see a little bit more of guys who are performing. We're seeing a little bit more personality come out. Like, for example, I think it's pretty hard to not walk away from practice being impressed and also a little bit taken aback by Audavian Collins because he's been playing pretty well from what we've seen at the corner spot. He's in the conversation for that second starting spot next to AJ Harris alongside Elliott Washington, who of course has had a huge offseason so far. The winter workout stuff has been well documented. But Audavian, really physical when we see him in the one-on-ones. I would say probably the most physical corner we've seen. And then he will let you know when he beats you. He's certainly a trash talker. I chatted with Liam Clifford a little bit about it on Tuesday, and he was like, "Yeah, it pisses me off sometimes, but like it's a good thing because it keeps me working." And he said, a lot of the corners are that way, and it's a good trait for a corner. But I think that's a lot of fun. On the actual like newsy side of things, for the second straight week, we didn't see Deni Dennis Sutton or Nolan Rucci, which those two guys are obviously huge for Penn State's success this fall. But James Franklin said not anything long term. They're just not available right now, which, they're vet guys. They're both going into their final seasons of college football. Spring ball is important, but if they're not getting every rep out there, it'll be all right. So I think those were two of the big things that I wanted to hit on.
Yeah, and some other guys too, not there. Like King Mac wasn't out there, at least from what I saw. We know Anthony Donko still
Yep.
recovering from that injury that he suffered late in the season in November. And so when you're looking at that right tackle spot, you don't have Nolan Rucci out there. You don't have Anthony Donko as well. And it's like, okay, well, who's playing right tackle? Well, Javin Williams with an opportunity, the former 5-star from Wyomissing, to work his way in,
Yep.
get some more tape, get some more work. And we don't necessarily have him pegged as a potential starter at right tackle because it's kind of an embarrassment of riches right now, and especially not inexperienced, but in experience, like with
Yeah.
experience
Yeah. I got you. I got you.
on that offensive line. So not necessarily, a potential starter. That could obviously change over the months, but still good for Javin, to get some work, and I'm sure he'll work back in at guard once those guys are back at right tackle. Cooper Cousins for the second week in a row was snapping,
Yep.
along with Nick Dawkins and Venga Juan Ione as well. Getting tripped up over my words, Max. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
thrown off. I'm thrown off really quick because we were talking about this. I was supposed to golf this morning. I was supposed to
Oh,
golf this morning,
it didn't
and
happen.
well, it did and it didn't. Me and my buddy got out there. So we were looking at the forecast, and it was supposed to rain all in the afternoon in Philly, in the
Mhm.
Philly area. So we're like, okay, we got our live podcast here. I've got to be back by like 12:15, 12:30 to set up. Let's get out and play at 7 a.m. We were one of the first groups off,
Mhm.
and it starts pouring rain when we're on the third hole. They
Oh,
call us in for lightning. Hey, we'll send you back out there. I'm like, I got to talk to the Penn Live subscribers and
right.
listeners. I can't. So yeah, I only got 5 holes in, so disappointed, and just my whole day was thrown off. It is what. No, I'm kidding. No, but some standouts from Pratt. Now that my I'm done being on my soapbox about not being able to golf on a Thursday morning.
Yeah.
It's just one of those. It's one of those. It happens. No, but some standouts on the offensive line. So interested to see where Cooper Cousins slots in this whole thing, because he could very easily be the center and maybe you move Nick Dawkins over. Although I don't ultimately see that coming to fruition. It seems more likely that Cooper would be maybe the starting left guard because Venga's seemingly moving over to right guard with Sal Wormley gone. So just some tidbits, some observations there as well along the offensive line.
Yeah, I think Javin Williams is an interesting one. I mean, for a lot of reasons, Penn State fans and especially our readers specifically are really interested in hearing about him. And, he's going into, gosh, is he going into year 4 already? He'll be a redshirt junior.
Year
Uh,
year
year
three,
3,
right?
redshirt sophomore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Year 3. Still, like he's going into year 3, and for a guy of his prospect pedigree, he hasn't put it together yet. And obviously James Franklin has said it a bunch of times. It's pretty well known. Like while missing only runs the football, which kind of put him behind the 8 ball when he got here to, be able to learn how to pass block against high level competition. But James Franklin added, like, he's starting to figure it out. It seems like this offseason, he's maybe turning the corner a little bit based on what Franklin said. And that's also important for him in this situation, to be able to get all those extra first team reps without the Rucci, without the Donko out there, because it's just not a situation he's been in before. And so, if he's going to make another step and be a viable rotation piece, potentially be a starter somewhere on the line next year, this offseason is a really, really important one for him. And I think there are a lot of players who have been in that situation in the past. Like, just look at Zachy Wheatley, who is probably, looked at as one of Penn State's best players this year. Going into his second to last season last year, he was kind of, he played some, but wasn't, really all together as a player. And he had a great spring, played a lot in the spring, and look where he is now. So I think, there's a ton of guys who by the end of these 15 practices, we're going to be talking about, like, they've made strides, blah, blah, blah. But Javin Williams is certainly an interesting one, given the circumstances. And it's also interesting because he usually would be splitting time between guard and tackle. But in the situation right now, he's really only playing tackle. So a little bit different for him. But Johnny, I think I really want to hit on the wide receivers, of course, because it's what everybody wants to know. Just as always, want to say we are live. If you're watching this live, hit us with questions, comments. We'll see them. We'll try to get to them if we can. Appreciate all of you for tuning in, both live and watching on the recorded version. But Johnny, wide
I was
receivers.
going to say, Max, I was going to say, if you're going to ask a question, ask away. Just don't ask about my short game. It was my first time out today.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was terrible. So yeah.
Listen, I just hope 5 holes didn't look like 9. That's all I'm gonna.
It didn't. It didn't.
Yeah.
It was actually better than I thought. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take it. We'll take those because my first time out, 5 holes did look like 9 for me on the front. So the back was better, but I'm just happy that the weather's warming up, Johnny. It just feels good to be able to say golf is happening. But I think wide receivers were interesting, and there's a name that I know that you want to get to that I would like to highlight. Tyseer Denmark. I think last week it was like far and away Devontae Ross was the winner of the receiving core in practice. He was a little more quiet this time around, but Tyseer Denmark, I think from what I charted, he won 1 rep and lost another one, but the one rep he won was a really impressive one, and it stood out for me among the wide receivers. But you've got a lot to hit on between him, Marques Hagans and everything we saw. So Johnny, I give you the floor for a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's start with Tyseer and then work our way to the bigger wide receiver conversation
Yeah.
that we had with Marques Hagans. But we're talking about Javin Williams and some of these guys who might have to step up. And you mentioned Zach Key, like that he was always going to play a role, but it was like preempted. His emergence, his come to the fore was because of an injury to KJ Winston. And injuries happen. It's always a long season. You don't never know when guys are going to have to step up. Whether that's a contributor into a starter or a non-factor into a contributor. But when you look at this wide receiver group, I think the way that they're looking at this is, hey, there's just an open path to playing time for anyone who wants to step up and take it. And spring camp is an opportunity to do that. And it doesn't matter if you're a veteran. It doesn't matter if you're a second-year player, because when I asked James Franklin about Tyseer Denmark specifically, we saw him make that one really nice play in the red zone period where he beat Zaki Wheatley on a crosser and separated well and caught a touchdown. And then he also stood out in the perimeter blocking drills, which I know like it's spring, they're not fully padded, but still he was getting some props from some of the coaches there. I asked James about that and about the spring that Tyseer Denmark has had so far. And he said, he's got a bright future, but no one cares that he's a redshirt freshman. His time is now. And I feel like that's overarching. Like that's a kind of and wide receiver specifically, but more overarching for this roster is that, if you're a second year player, like we're trying to win a national championship, in 6 months, 7 months, whatever it is, 8 months, 9 months, it's going to be a long season. We're trying to win a national championship, and whoever is going to put us in best position to do that is going to be on the field. And when you look at the wide receiver position, you lose Harrison Wallace and Amari Evans and Julian Fleming as well. It's a lot of snaps that go out the door with Wallace and Evans specifically, your top two wide receivers. And so you bring in Ross, you bring in Hudson, but that's I think they'll be good. I think Devontae Ross specifically, but you still need more, right? You need more. And Tyseer Denmark, James Franklin noted too, he was shown flashes last season in practice. He has the ability to be a big time player in the Big Ten as a redshirt freshman, but the consistency has to be there, and he has to show it, and he has to do it on a consistent basis. I feel like that's for everyone.
It reminds me a lot, Johnny, what you've said there and what James said about no one cares that he's a redshirt freshman. It reminds me a ton of when Nick Singleton and Katron Allen were in their freshman years, and we got to week 6 or 7, and we had a midweek availability with, excuse me, Jaywan Sider, and he's like, these guys aren't freshmen anymore. They went through spring ball already. They've played a few games in the season. We cannot treat these guys like freshmen anymore. We have a standard here. They need to be able to uphold it. They have the experience, and I think Tyseer's in a similar boat. And I think it's especially important in that wide receiver room. Like you said, there are a ton of snaps and receptions out there because guy you didn't even mention, Tyler Warren led all of them. So it might not be far-fetched to say Luke Reynolds is going to be a great player, but to say that he's going to have the amount of production Tyler Warren had, those are some pretty big shoes to fill. So, Tyseer Denmark's up there. They need a step. They need a step from a lot of these guys. And maybe some new guys too.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, Penn State had, and obviously Tyler Warren was the team's leading receiver, over 1,000 yards, 100 catches, 8 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
This team had 5 wide receivers catch a touchdown pass last season.
Yeah.
Wallace is gone. Evans is gone. Fleming is gone. You've got Liam Clifford, who had 1 touchdown. And then you had Tyseer Denmark, who had a touchdown against Maryland. And I know it was garbage time. It wasn't garbage time, I guess, or maybe it was more garbage time to Mike Locksley. I'm still trying to figure out where
it was certainly some sort of garbage in Mike Locksley's mind. He definitely used a different word because I was sitting right across from him when he described it. But I also asked him the question. But he was big mad, and I just I don't not that we need to rehash this, but I don't understand why he's mad, man. He's known James for long enough. He knew that was coming.
Just be better. Honestly. Anyway, Tyser Denmark, one of two returning receivers to this team with a touchdown catch for Penn State last year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you look at the snaps, I think he had just over 40 offensive snaps in 4 games as a redshirt freshman last year. So, like, there's not a lot to really go off of there, but James Franklin doesn't care. It's like, it's one of those where you showed flashes in practice. Great. Like, we recruited you because you're talented. And he believes in the tools. He believes in the talent. This isn't him being like, a negative Nancy or anything. This is him saying, like, it's time. There's the kid gloves are off with these wide receivers, and Marques Hagans. I mean, he really, like, he laid home that point, like, made that point very clear. Like, when I asked him about Tyser Denmark and what James was saying, that his time is now, Marques Hagans goes, shoot, everyone's time is now. We came up short of our goal last year, and this is it. This year is this year, and he doesn't care about next year or 2 years from now or whatever. For his wide receivers, for this group that is in flux, that there's a lot of fluidity in that room right now, and they might go out and add another receiver or two in the spring portal when it opens up in a couple weeks. Like, so for those guys who are in the room right now who are catching balls from Drew Aller, like, this is the time to put your stamp on things, to say, no, like, you can trust me. I can be a reliable presence, in this room and for Aller and for this offense. But the main takeaway that I had, I don't know if you want to add on to that at all before we start getting into what Marques Hagans said, Max?
No, I was gonna segue there myself. I mean, I think I was gonna say I think your story was really valuable this week from Haggins, because he was really honest, and I know that you're getting there, but like, we can follow the path. Like, started with James Franklin saying we're gonna analyze all our options in the spring. In the portal, when he was asked about the wide receivers and not specifically about adding a new one, he brought it up. And then you go to Pat Kraft and you got the AD saying we need a wide receiver, and then you get the chance to ask Hagans about it this week. So, Johnny, I mean, lay it on me.
Yeah, so we talked to Marques for probably about 10 minutes, and I think initially I opened up the first question. I was just like, how do you feel about this group? Because it's totally new. This is the first time we're talking to you in a few months. Guys left, guys came in. How you feeling? And he was a little cagey. He was kind of just like, yeah, we're just working. We're just developing, all that. And that was kind of how the first few minutes went. But then he started to really open up when people asked him about, Pat Kraft's comments. Pat Kraft, back in late February, told us that it's, quote unquote, not a secret that Penn State needs wide receiver help in the portal. And he wasn't talking about the winter portal that just passed. He was talking about the April portal. And Marques agreed. Well, he said, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But he said, we can always use help. We can always use help. And he said that he wants to have the best wide receiver room in the country. And that's from both development, that's everything, that's talent-wise. And he said, until we get to that point, yeah, we need help. Yeah, of course. Like, we do need wide receiver help. And so I think it was one of two ways. Like, it was illuminating that he was so honest about that. But also, I feel like he's, again, just trying to get the message across to the guys in the room right now that, look, he said point blank, like, it's my job to replace the guys in the room, and it's their job to keep their job, to make sure that I don't have to, which is an aggressive line of thinking, but it's totally fair. Again, especially for a team with national title aspirations, for a group that came so close last year. I mean, they were a few plays away from beating Notre Dame. And then you look at it and it's like, well, the wide receivers didn't have any catches. It's kind of a problem, And so, they have to improve in that area. And James knows it. Marques Hagans knows it better than anyone. And so I don't blame him at all for saying what he's saying and how he's saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, look, he knows they're under the microscope. I do applaud Haggins, because I think, it would be tough to be in his position and have to answer these questions over and over again. Now, like, it's not pitying him. It's not cutting him slack or anything, because, like, obviously it's his job to figure it out and make it happen. But, like, it is pretty tough to get up every week and say, look, my group still needs to prove themselves. So, we're going to keep talking about it. He's going to keep hearing about it. But I did appreciate just how candid he was, because like you said, he started out a little not defensive, but, just apprehensive maybe. And, it really turned into a great conversation with him. I think,
One thing I want to add, because I
yeah,
want to read this quote in
yeah,
full.
do it.
So he was saying, when he was saying, like, it's my job to replace these guys and it's their job to make me basically not want to. He said they have to get the right guys in the room, and
Mm.
the follow up question naturally was, well, what does the right guys like look like? Like, what does that mean? He said, we've got to find guys who love football and guys who are tough. Excuse my language, but guys who are tough as the S word. We're gonna try to make this not an explicit podcast. Marques is making it tough. He said, like, if we played in the parking lot and you rolled the football out and we were going to tackle, they wouldn't give a shoot. They just line up and play. We need guys like that, guys smart enough to be able to take the things that we're doing schematically and apply them on the field in a competitive setting against the best teams in the country. When that happens, those are the right guys. Maybe the right guys are in the room right now and it's just April and they just haven't gotten there. Maybe by the time August rolls around, they will be the right guys. But I think they're going to continue to be aggressive in trying to make sure that that room is as positioned as well as possible come August, September, October, to be as close to that high bar as they can.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, expect Penn State to be looking in the April portal, and expect them to bring in as much competition as possible.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to happen. That's a heck of a quote. That's a really good quote from Marques. And I think it says it flat out. Like, if you look at that room last year, I think there were talented players, but I do think that it could stand to have a little more want to. I really I think it does. I think it does. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's going to be a topic of conversation continually. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. The portal opens up on April 16th, I
Yes.
think,
Yep.
which is before Penn State's spring game. You know, the calendar has always been a problem since this happened. Still doesn't make any sense, but we'll certainly. I'm sure we'll see more departures too. We'll see some additions. The only other thing that I wanted to hit on from Tuesday, I personally spent a lot of time with Zane Durant over there. Penn State senior defensive tackle, came back, really thought he had a shot at the NFL. He definitely had a shot at the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Let's put it that way. Like, he turned down a probably mid-round, late-round draft selection to come back for his senior year. And he genuinely seemed a little bit older, a little bit more mature. Like, it was the best, I think, scrum session we've had with Zane in his time at Penn State. He was open, he was honest, he was having fun. Like, he seems like he's in a really good place, and like, they need that. Penn State needs that, because that defensive tackle room is pretty thin right now. I mean, there's not a lot of experience. Alonzo Ford is still coming back from injury, and he played a lot last year, but they're going to need 4 or 5 guys at that position. So there are going to be some names that we need to keep an eye on. Xavier Gilliam's a big one. Zane Durant said he's a big fan of the freshman, Randy Adarica, who came in. But Zane, yeah, a lot of fun. We learned, we were joking with him in the winter about being a Florida guy and coming up for the weather in State College. And he's like, I learned the hard way about black ice. So I was giving him some crap on Tuesday, saying, you get hit with black ice again yet? And he's like, no. I learned how to handle it. I walk with my eyes down, and like,
There you go.
I said, you get some spikes for walking around in bad weather, and he's like all embarrassed. He's like, no, I didn't get spikes, but he's in good shape. Zane was a lot of fun. And he said flat out, like, I want to be the best. I want to be the best D tackle in America. I want to be an All-American. I want to win a national championship. That's why I'm here. He was really good. It was fun to talk to Zane, and he's going to be a key piece of this thing moving forward. So
Yeah, a huge piece. I mean, I thought he was one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the country last year, and I mean, James Franklin, said it too. Like, throughout the year, like, it felt like obviously there was so much publicity around Abdul Carter, and with totally good and valid reason for that.
Right, right,
And then the way Dennis Sutton played, especially down the stretch, he got his flowers. But so much of what Zane Durant did, I feel like on the interior, not that Abdul Carter needed a lot of help to do what he did to offensive tackles, but
right.
for that defensive front as a whole and that defense as a whole, like Zane Durant was integral in what Penn State did as a defense last year. And like you mentioned, Max, a huge role upcoming for him as a focal point of this defensive line alongside Dennis Sutton. I mean, you've got young guys next to him, young and inexperienced guys at D tackle. You got young and inexperienced guys as well, on the two deep and throughout the rotation at the defensive end. So Zane Durant is going to be looked upon as a leader of this group, not just one of the best and most talented defensive tackles in the Big Ten and in the country. So, glad you were able to chat with him. That story go up already, or is that going up tomorrow?
It's coming today. It's coming today.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, yeah, look out for that. I've got something more on. I know we talked a lot about Tyseer Denmark.
Mhm.
Something coming on that on Friday morning. Already have a big wide receivers post up from talking to Marques Hagans, and something that dropped this morning. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, you definitely will want to. Trace McSorley, assistant quarterbacks coach, he was out there doing a whole lot of stuff. He was out there giving footwork drills to the backup quarterbacks. He was in ball security drills with one of those like padded fists, like whacking away at backs. Like he's cutting his teeth, as a young coach, his first foray into coaching. And I was able to talk to Joe Moorhead, former Penn State offensive coordinator, who has a great relationship with Trace about Trace's, next step of his career. So that was it was great talking to Joe. It always is. And so give that a look if you haven't already.
Yeah, absolutely. Trace is an interesting one. James had good stuff to say about bringing him in too, and I think we already kind of saw it from week 1 to week 2. I mean, there are 4 practices in, but I think kind of already saw him coming out of his shell a little bit as a coach. Like I think he was doing more this week than he was last week. Like he'll definitely be a quick learner and an interesting guy to have on the staff, and definitely a fun one at the very least. So. But I think it was a really valuable week of practice for us. I'm going to have some more on Javin Williams coming soon. Some recruit stuff. I'm going to tease. I talked with the coach of Khalil Taylor, the elite 27 wide receiver that Penn State got this week. There's more coming on him, and let me tell you, there's gushing about a player, and then there's what Coach Tim Storino did this week, talking to me about Khalil Taylor. So I know there's a lot of excitement about him, and certainly sounds like there should be. So keep an eye out for that story coming soon. And actually some Penn State hockey stuff coming from me, because those Nittany Lions are going to the Frozen Four for the first time in program history, and it's a really big deal. I talked to Carson Dick, the team captain, this week, and I asked him, I was like, do you kind of think about the history of this going from the club to the D1 level, and not a long time? And he said, yeah, like we really care about the alumni and the people that came before us, and like they're as much a part of this season as we are. So I think this team is really fun. Obviously, like they've made a hell of a run to get here, but they've all got great perspective, and I think it's going to be really awesome to see them run down to St. Louis. So. Keep an eye out for some hockey stuff too. Kind of a one-off thing, obviously, but appreciate some readership for it. So I think that does it for us.
Shout out Penn State hockey.
Yeah,
Guy Gadowski, like that program is awesome. That was one team I never covered when I was at the Daily Collegian, the student paper. Yeah. So my senior year, like me, and I'm not like, I enjoy hockey. I enjoy hockey a lot more live than I do watching on TV.
Yeah, me too.
My roommates in college were huge hockey guys, huge Flyers guys. Yeah. And we got season tickets and went to a lot of the games at Pagula, and that environment is just always so cool. And to see that the team do what they did to get here is really special and worth watching and worth celebrating. So yeah, it's really nice. It's really cool.
Yeah. Pagula is a fantastic sports arena. Like if you haven't been, which I'm sure, anybody who has interest in Penn State hockey probably has. But if you haven't, like it's a really nice sporting arena. I'm a fan. Maybe it's up there with my favorite on Penn State's campus. I'm also a Panzer Stadium lover. I
Oh
think
yeah.
I think the view from over there with Mount Nittany in the background is gorgeous. They did a great job renovating the press box over there. But yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Hey, well, look, I'm looking forward to reading what you put out there, and yeah, so that's next weekend
Yep.
is the Frozen Four. So very much looking forward to watching that and keeping tabs from afar as they go to St. Louis and Penn State with another spring practice availability for us next Tuesday.
Mhm.
Don't have the list of coaches and players that we'll be talking to yet, but stay tuned as we I was going to say we trek up to State College. I trek up to State College. You
Yeah.
don't. You go like 5 minutes down the road, which,
Yep.
it's a much easier drive for you than it is for me. But it's well worth it,
It is.
given what we get to see and who we get to talk to and the insight that we get as spring practice rolls along, Max. Very much looking forward to it. And we'll have a podcast on Monday. I believe it'll be me and Bob again. And then we'll continue to do these live podcasts every Thursday at noon. As we mentioned, this thing is open for questions. So
Tell your
anyone who's
friends.
live, anyone who wants to spend lunch with us,
Yeah.
drop your questions in comments, anything,
Yeah.
and we'll get to it. So
Yeah.
it's been a blast as always, Max.
Yep. Appreciate everybody watching. We're in the thick of it. Spring ball is full swing. We're in a regular routine now. Keep watching, keep reading. There's a lot coming out. So we'll have you covered all the way through the blue white game and beyond. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and take care. All right, we're all uploaded.
Awesome.